Now, let me remind you that what we're talking about is various aspects of the very central consideration that I consider to be important about the nature of therapy. And what I'm doing in my own mind is moving around certain aspects, certain general ideas about that experience, which I think it's important to lay down as the foundation for our consideration of what is, in fact, effective talk therapy, because it's fundamentally aiming at a definition or an experience of that I'm concerned with here. Now, the most fundamental beginning of this must lie in the fact that I am assuming, and I would maintain, that anyone who presents himself as needing therapy, as feeling he has the need, as this is some problem or defect or issue that he's trying to deal with, is not dealing with something that is illusional or fantastic, but is, as a matter of fact, in some way or other, and it can be very complicated and very individual, very unique, he or she is dealing with the result of real experience, of things that have really been experienced. Now, the fundamental problem, I believe, at the center of a defective experience is that in the years of childhood, in the years of nurturing, in the years in which we are essentially being trained to be a human being, that some defect, some deficit has been experienced. Now, I summarize that all up as saying, essentially, I do not feel seen. I do not feel comprehended. I do not feel cherished. I do not feel understood in terms of what I feel myself to be. And so, a scolding word, a pleasant urging word, a kind instruction can be misinterpreted if I experience it as somehow a criticism, somehow a blow against my sense of myself. And my fundamental assumption here is that we radically underestimate the intelligence and awareness of children, and the whole concept of childhood is, in a certain sense, stripping children of what they really possess. I had an experience just the other day here in my building. I got on the elevator and a mother was standing with a little boy, little god of a child, and he was about 3 feet tall at most. And when I got onto the elevator, I said to him, could you push the 3 button for me? And he strode manfully over to it and pushed the 3 button. And then I said to him, well, you did a good job of doing that. And he turned and went like that to me. Now, I said to his mother, I love how smart they always are. I hope she got that. I hope she knows what a little treasure she's got there and how sensitive and aware that little creature is to everything that is being said or done. And we are all taking that in on a minute-by-minute basis in all the years of our growing up. Now, what that means is that if I have not been seen, if I have not been validated, if I have not been supported, if I have not been cherished, if I have not been instructed well to be myself, I will feel that as some kind of loss or some kind of blow. And that, in my opinion, is the starting point for the need for therapy. That basically, the need for therapy is the need for a correction, an adjustment, a fulfillment of the pattern of training, the pattern of growing up that we needed essentially to become who we are when we're kids, when we're on our way to learning how to be a human being. Now, what that implies is that the fundamental relationship that must be established between a therapist and a client that's appealing for the therapist's help is one essentially of welcoming. And in my opinion, that means that the kind of generalization that's often taught to therapists, the therapy is not a corrective emotional experience, is radically wrong, and it will radically undermine the relationship between the therapist and the potential client. What I'm driving at is the fact that it is the job of a therapist to so understand himself and his own feelings, his own participation in the process intersubjectively, that he, she will be ready to welcome whatever the feelings of the client really are. And that phrase, to my mind, is all important, to welcome the real feelings of the client, whatever they are. And of course, if I'm scolding him, if I'm instructing him in what he's doing wrong, if I'm telling her that she's delusional or that she's pathological, I'm scolding all over again, and I'm re-inflicting the wound that brought the client into the room in the first place. Is it any wonder that that would imply that talk therapy is not effective? Well, in that case, it isn't, you see, because why do I need to be wounded similarly? If I'm being told I have a disorder, if I'm being told that I have some kind of defect that is radically wrong, that's exactly the kind of message that implicitly is received in the first place, that is disturbing in the first place. What's wrong with you? Why don't you do the right thing? Who needs to hear that over again? Put positively, what that means is that the beginning, the foundation of the therapeutic experience must know that I, as a creature, you, each of us as a creature, are listening with the totality of ourselves. So we're listening with our minds, we're listening with our eyes, we're listening with our ears, we're listening with every emotion that's in us. We're listening with memory, we're listening with forgetfulness. In other words, I like to say that I'm experiencing everything with the totality of my mind. My mind is operative at all times. It is the mind of a person, the total body and feeling that I'm talking about, that needs to be welcomed as the foundation experience for good therapy. And that means that my client must feel welcomed in terms of whatever it is he or she is feeling. And the only way to do that, in my view, is to so approach the client that he or she will feel that his feeling, her feeling is understood, is welcomed, is known for what it is. As I've said before in these talks, nothing pleases me more, nothing makes me feel more at the center of the process than when I hear from my client, yeah, those are the very words I would have used for it. Yeah, those are my words for it. Or, wow, I never thought of it that way, but that really gets it. Something like that. Now, the experience there, you see, is that the feelings feel heard, feel welcome, feel known. But at the same time, underneath it all, as it were, the client is experiencing a welcome to bring forward whatever it is he or she is looking for in the therapeutic experience. Well, what that implies is that one of the things which I suspect is an abiding prejudice about this whole process needs to be overturned. And that's the avoidance, the expunging, the damping of bad feeling, the rejection of bad feeling, and looking for only good feelings. In other words, if I am accurately going to enter a therapeutic experience for myself, I must, however slowly, however quickly, however genuinely, whatever the process requires for this individual, to slowly but surely experience the reality of my feelings. Bad as they may be, dire as they may be, dark as they may be. I'm sad. I feel down. I feel like I want to die. I feel like nothing will ever go right. I feel unusual ecstasy. I feel so much joy that it feels unreal. Whatever. You see, every one of those feelings needs to be welcomed, needs to be received into the process. No matter how dire, no matter how dark, no matter how deadly, not pathologized, not made wrong, but seen as an accurate response in one way or another to something that really happened and therefore is genuinely felt. It must not be driven away. It must not be shamed. It absolutely requires welcome, because when those feelings are welcomed, the way I like to say it is, the individual himself, herself, will feel welcomed into the process and welcomed to be here once again in exactly the same way that he or she may have been present in all those childhood years. You are genuinely allowed to be present and genuinely allowed to continue to work on whatever things you are conceiving as the problems. Now, when I feel that someone is in that position for himself or herself to be able to reawaken, to re-experience what is being quested for, I think we can have a genuine therapeutic experience. I think that's the heart of a really effective therapeutic experience. And I promise you, down the road we will talk about specifics, but I don't think there's a value in talking about any specific problem if we don't understand that it must be experienced and examined in this kind of fundamentally welcoming context.